Hi, everybody. My name is Simon Bassett, and Pastor Steve had asked me to share some of my thoughts with you on how to relinquish unrealistic expectations. So, my background is I'm a school psychologist practicing in a neighboring school district. I also work in a private practice, and I primarily see children and youth helping figure out and understand why they're struggling and what's going on. So that's kind of why I think Steve had asked me to share some of my experiences from my work with you. And I'm also want to share a couple of things from my personal life. So I always kind of like to know what I'm talking about. So I kind of look up a few of these words. So I got the expectation is kind of defined as a strong belief that something will happen or someone's going to sort of achieve or do something. Now, expectations in themselves actually can be good things. We have realistic expectations for ourselves and for others that can actually facilitate and support people's growth and development. The struggle comes in when we have unrealistic expectations that kind of get in the way of those things. So in my work, let me tell you a little bit about that. I see children and adolescents in the school system mainly who are struggling to meet expectations for their learning, social and emotional growth. So they're sent to me and I'm supposed to try to figure out what's going on. And sometimes we find that children are struggling because the expectations are too high for their ability. And we really need to kind of adjust those expectations. And I always tell parents and teachers, if the expectation's too high, you're going to cause a lot of frustration and angst for the child and for the adults around them. Expectations too low, that child's not going to grow, develop, and learn, reach their potential. So we're trying to find the sweet spot of where those expectations could be so that we can encourage growth but not frustrate everybody along the way. So sometimes when I see children and students at the end of my assessment, I figure out, well, they have a learning disability and that's why they're struggling. We need to adjust our academic expectations. Sometimes it's an issue around emotional and social or attention issues, and we have to adjust expectations there accordingly as well. And sometimes children are doing as well as they can under the circumstances. So expectations are close, but a bit too high. So once we adjust things, then we see that the pressure comes off and a lot more growth happens. So from my personal life, being at home here, like most of us, I had to adjust my expectations. Set up my home office, sat down, started working, and it took me forever to get things done. I just could not function it the way I normally do. It was kind of like, I had to say, walking through molasses. So I talked it over with my boss, and we had a discussion. He said, "Yeah, you're not working from home. You're at home during a crisis, trying to work." And I don't even have any small children running around, where some of my colleagues are trying to do this with their small children running around. So we had to adjust our expectations for what is realistic that we could get done. We still obviously are expected to work, but perhaps not be as productive as if we were sitting in an office by ourselves, surrounded with all the tools that we need. So how did that kind of come about? How did I, adjust those expectations? And Steve would wanted me to give some pointers on how to kind of let go or give up if we have unreal expectations. Because the unreal ones can cause frustration, disappointment, and hurt. So I think the first thing we have to do is acknowledge that we have these unrealistic expectations. If we're not aware of them, then we can't even begin to sort of look at them. And one way to figure them out, if the word should or the could ought is coming up a lot, I should be better at this, or they should be doing that, or someone should be treating me this way, and tied with a feeling of disappointment or hurt. It doesn't work out the way we thought it would work out. So once we're aware of an unrealistic expectation, then what are we going to do about it? Well, I kind of look at it, is it helping the situation? Is it helping the child, individual, my relative, or is it hurting? Or for myself, is it helping or is it hurting? Is it sort of leading to more growth and more positive things in my life and others' lives, or is it hindering or stifling growth? And I can certainly think about that with the children I work with, who the expectations are really, really high and they're really, really frustrated. The adults are really frustrated and there's very little growth going on. How do we deal with it? What's the right treatment? So if the treatment, really the kind of approach I think is helpful is compassion and kindness. Once I recognize an unrealistic expectation. I think, if we look at things from our spiritual lens or how Christ would see things, I like to always think of it as a very common and well oft quoted passage, 1 Corinthians 13, 4-7. Love is patient, love is kind. And I heard many, many years ago a little exercise where you take the word love out and I put my name in. Simon is patient, Simon is kind, Simon is gentle. And that was, for me, was a little inventory and a huge insight to, holy cow, here's a way to really think about this and apply it to myself and think about myself in those ways. And this is not always easy, and it's not going to happen overnight. So again, because we have our spiritual worldview, we have, as Christians, we can, of course, pray. And here's one of the best ways, I think, to do this. Pray for wisdom. Pray for insight. Pray to see where my unrealistic expectations are. Pray for the patience and the strength and the courage to let them go. Pray to find that sweet spot for the expectations, for myself and for others. Pray that we may see others as Christ sees others. Pray that we may see ourselves as Christ sees us. I think that'll go a long way into helping us move forward and seeing our unrealistic expectations and making them more realistic and more Christ-like. Hope my rambling thoughts have been helpful. It's great to see everyone. Take care.